Hi and welcome to the second episode of Fun with Azure.
My name's Martin Abbott.
And my name's Todd Elliott. So Martin, what's news this week?
Well, it's been an interesting couple of weeks, I think, and I think probably the big story over the last week or so has been the acquisition of LinkedIn, right, for $26.2 billion. Yes, that's an eye-watering amount. However, for me, the better story in terms of acquisition was of an organisation called Wand Labs.
Okay.
Now, Wand Labs have a specialisation in conversational intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you think about the stuff that's been going through the books recently about things like the bot framework, Cortana Intelligence Suites, the cognitive services, and that sort of thing, then you can see how something that's around conversational intelligence fits really, really well with the core products around that intelligence part of the market, particularly around things like machine learning and cognitive services. So I think that's going to be probably, for me, the more interesting acquisition. Beyond that, everybody who knows me knows that one of my favourite services, I think I mentioned this last time, is DocumentDB.
Yes.
Well, in the last week, they've announced the general availability of global distribution and replication. So what this basically means is that you can now create collections and globally distribute them, which is fantastic, and have replication set across the various regions. So essentially what you wind up with is multi-region databases, which I think is great. You get high availability, and more importantly, I think you also get regional failover. So it makes it a real enterprise-grade service, which I think is great. So the next piece of news I want to talk about is back in November, Microsoft announced a thing called blockchain as a service.
Yep.
Now this was based on Ethereum, which is another one of the blockchain services. So it's different to Bitcoin, same sort of technology. So it's that distributed ledger, but it is a different technology. Well, they've just announced a bunch of architectural guidance around that. It's called Project Bletchley, and it provides an architectural approach for building enterprise-grade blockchain services. So it provides information around things like identity, key management, performance, scalability, and that operational stuff that you need to make something a proper enterprise-grade service. So that's Project Bletchley. That's been released on GitHub. You can get up there and download the white paper and start looking about what that means.
So and the links below, Martin?
The links will be below when we release the video. The next part was really around the spirit of openness. Now we all know that Microsoft of old was Microsoft of old, but obviously since very much the last 4 or 5 years, they've become a much more open society and contribute as much to open source as everybody else. Big thing this week was around the release of the IntelliJ plugin for HD Insight. Now HD Insight is Microsoft's implementation of Hadoop on Azure. It's not the easiest ecosystem to work with. You need to really generally know what you're doing. But IntelliJ, which is one of the big Java IDEs, they've released a plugin for that, which hopefully should mean that people can get up to speed much more quickly with that ecosystem. So that's a good piece of news. And then the other one, just for the sheer fun of it, I think really, is over the last couple of weeks, we've seen Service Fabric, which is the thing that a bunch of the underlying Azure services run on anyway, but is also the big play in terms of microservices from the Azure platform perspective. We've seen that running on Linux, which is quite an interesting thing, I think, because it's, like I say, a key piece of technology for Microsoft. And perhaps even more importantly, or more out there really, is we had Mark Russinovich, the Azure CTO, last week at DockerCon, running, get this, SQL Server 2016 inside a container on Linux on Azure.
Okay.
Right, so that's a lot of ons, but basically, of course, just great to see such openness from the Microsoft platform, which I think leads us into something about what you were doing last week. So what were you doing last week?
Well, last week Rachel and I were invited by Microsoft to go over and participate in their data-driven AU event, which was really the launch of SQL Server 2016 in Australia. So we had Connor Cunningham with us, who's the partner architect of the SQL Server core engine, and he gave us a quick overview of some of the technologies that are new in SQL Server this year.
Fantastic, that's great.
And I think one of the key takeaways from the data-driven event, Martin, was the fact that data is central to everything that we do these days. And that data is being used to help provide better services to us. We're getting earlier insight into situations and helping our lives run smoother through the use of data, and things like Internet of Things was all part of that. And there are a few displays there. So we had our tracker solution, our pedaling analytics solution up there. But it's an exciting time to be involved in tech.
Yeah, indeed so. Well, I'm glad you mentioned the IoT actually, because that leads us nicely into what we're doing in the technical section this week. So what we're going to do this week is we're going to cover IoT Hub Explorer, which is a different way. It's a Node.js app, so it's a different way of interacting with IoT Hub. I think it's quite a nice way of actually getting end-to-end connectivity and playing around.
Okay.
For the technical session, I thought we'd look at an alternative way of interacting with IoT Hub. Probably most of us are used to using the Device Explorer. So we'll just go through it very quickly. We've got a management tab. We can create devices, refresh. We can look through the list of our devices and we can see whether they're connected or not. There's a management tab where we can choose the device that we want to interact with, and we can monitor events from that device. And there's also a messages to devices tab, and we go in there and we can send a device message as if we're simulating the back end. But there is an alternative approach, and there's a Node.js application called IoT Hub Explorer, which you can also use. So if you've got Node.js installed, you just go to Node Package Manager, install IoT Hub Explorer. I've already got it installed on this machine, so I won't install it because it does take a little bit of time. But as you can see, when I just do the list here, you'll see that I've already got it installed. And there we are. And you can see that there it is. It's installed. And when it gets installed, it drags in a bunch of other packages as well. So there you are. It's got it installed. So if you just type IoT Hub Explorer, that gives you a list of the commands that are available to you. Probably the most interesting ones right now are login, which allows you to pass in a connection string. That allows you to create a session, so you don't have to pass in the connection string at any point beyond then. There's a list command. There's a send command. Monitor events. These are all commands that we're going to play with as we go through today. So just if we very quickly start our session, so we type IoT Hub Explorer login and then pass in a connection string. I've got the connection string stored in a variable to save my blushes. So there we are. We started that session and off we go. From that point on, we don't need to type in the connection string anymore. So we type in list. You can pass in a bunch of comma-separated variables which correspond to the various properties that are available on the information to do with the device. So I've passed in device ID and connection state, and that shows me the device ID. And we can see here we've got main office, and there's a main office over here on Device Explorer, kitchen, and likewise kitchen over here, and they're all disconnected. So that's great. So we seem to be talking to the same IoT hub, which is great. So that's all well and good, but how do we take this a step further? Well, I've created a very simple application here, and again, this is pretty boilerplate. So I've got a device client which I'm creating from a connection string which is in my app settings, and I'm sending a message to my device called kitchen because that's where the connection string connects to, and then I write the device, and it's all good. So let's just start that up. Just takes a second to connect, of course. So there we are. We're starting to send messages, just fairly random messages. Now if we type IoT Hub Explorer, this is one of the commands that actually still requires the connection string. Then we type in monitor events, pass in what particular device we care about, and then the monitoring starts. And hopefully we should start seeing some messages being monitored. And there we go, we can see the messages come through, and we can see that as the messages tick over on the console app, the messages just appear in the IoT Hub Explorer window. Fantastic. So this is a great command line tool just for monitoring events. If you're like me, I prefer using command lines to applications. So that's very good. But what else can we do? Well, lots more as it happens. So if we go to another application I have here, which is very similar, again, we're getting the connection string for our particular device. This is going to be the kitchen device again. And we're just going to loop around looking for messages that are being sent from the service backend to the device itself. We're going to call a complete async, because what that does is that says if there's an acknowledgement required, then I'm going to pass that acknowledgement back. So we'll start that again and get that running. So there we are. This is now waiting for events to be sent through to the back end. So the other thing that we can do is or another command that we can use is IoT Hub Explorer receive. And And what that does is that looks at that IoT hub and it starts looking for the notification queue for acknowledgements from devices. So it's now waiting for feedback to say a device has received and acknowledged a message. So how do we send a message? Well, if we go to another window here, I've created a message here. It's a very, very simple message. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to type IoT Hub Explorer, send, which is the command we use to send as if we're simulating a back-end service to the kitchen, and I'm going to send that message. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask for a full acknowledgement. So remember, you've got that complete async, which will pass back any acknowledgement that we've requested. So there we are, it sent the message and the message has appeared on our device. And we get a feedback message. And we can see here that the message sent ID and the original message ID are the same. So we've got that correlation between the two messages. Just to prove that that's smoke and mirrors, we'll just send another quick one very quickly. And we can see again that it comes through. So as you can see, this is pretty useful tool just for checking all the wiring is there and it's all in place. And at that point, of course, you can start building out your infrastructure, and you know you've got a solution. There we go. There's the feedback. So that's it. That's all for this week. Thank you for watching, and we'll get back to you next time. Thanks.
As we've mentioned, we're going to have some fun sections on Fun with Azure. And what have we got in store for this week, Mark?
Well, this week, some people don't know this, but our Chief Operating Officer, a man by the name of Peter Walton, is affectionately known as Wally. So this week we're introducing a brand new section called Where's Wally?
Okay, and that's because he's on a big odyssey at the moment.
He is. He's taking a long trip. So the idea will be that every week or every section we'll try and introduce a photo, and you have to guess where he is this week.
Okay, so where's Wally?
Where's Wally?
I'm Todd Elliott.
I'm Martin Abbott.
And this has been Fun with Azure.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you.